It's Algebra 1, Lesson 4.4, talking about the slope of a line. We're finding slopes of a line using 2 points, and then we're interpreting a slope as a rate of change in real-life situations, beginning on page 226. First thing, we have two definitions, slope and rate of change. The slope, or m, anytime you see that variable m, more often than not, it is referring to the slope. When you see m, of a non-vertical line. Non-vertical means not a line going straight up and down. Is the number of the units the line rises or falls, so up and down, or up or down, for each unit of horizontal change from left to right. So your m is equal to your rise over your run, your up and down over your left and right, your change of y over your change of x. Anytime you see that little triangle, that means change, delta. Change of y over the change of x. Rise over run, up and down over left and right. If it goes up, it's positive. If it goes down, it's negative. If it goes left, it's negative. If it goes right, it's positive. It's just like looking at a Cartesian plane. You know, up is positive, down negative, left negative, right positive. Same thing. Rate of change is slope. But typically when you're talking about the rate of change, you're including units, and you're talking about real life situations when you're talking about rate of change. So for now, until you're told otherwise, rate of change is a synonym of slope. Synonym means it's the same, slope and rate of change. Finding a slope of a line, m of a non-vertical line passing through these points. Now you read this, you don't read this as x1, x2. You don't read it as x1, y1, or x2, y2. You read it as x sub 1 and y sub 1. X sub 2, y sub 2. M is equal to rise over run, the change in y over the change in x. Your change in y is how many times it's going up in this case. You can see it's going up because it is a positive slope. Your change in x is how many times it's going to the right. So notice y sub 2 minus y sub 1, x sub 2 minus x sub 1. The slope formula is the change of y. Remember, if you're talking about the difference of two things, how they change, or the difference, difference means minus. Difference means subtract. Most people do not remember the slope formula exactly, but everybody remembers exactly how to do it with no problem. The slope formula is the change of y. How many times do you go up and down? Over the change of x. How many times do you go left or right? This is the key to using the slope formula correctly. You must go the same direction both times. Notice as you're looking at the slope formula, it says y sub 2, and right below y sub 2 is x sub 2. That has to be the same point you're looking at. Y and x, both from the second point. And y sub 1 and x sub 1, both from the same point. One is on top of 1, 2 is on top of 2. That is very important. Most people, when they're looking at the slope of a line like 1, 1 and 2, 3, can simply say, okay, well, 3 minus 1 is 2, over 2 minus 1 is 1. Most people can do that. Notice which way I went both times with my arrows, though. I went from right to left. What you can't do is go from right to left with the first one and then go from left to right with the second one. That's a no-no when you do that. You'll get the wrong number doing that. Okay, then we talked about this just a minute ago, classifying lines by their slope. If the ramp is going uphill, like this one's going uphill, that's a positive slope. It is rising from left to right. If a line is going downhill, it is negative. It is falling. So if you see that term rise or fall, it is not necessarily talking about the top number in the slope, up or down. Typically it is, but it could be using it as a descriptive word, rising and falling. Okay, then these are the two that people can get confused, horizontal and vertical lines. Which one has a slope of 0? Which one has an undefined slope? This first one, if you compare 2 points, doesn't matter which two you pick, but two of them that are on the line, you can see that it doesn't go up or down at all. So that's 0. Over, it goes left and right. Let's say it just goes over 1. So if you have the fraction 0 divided by 1, what is 0 divided by something? 0. So therefore, a horizontal line has a slope of 0. If you look at the other one that people get confused with, and you compare this point to this point, it goes up. Let's say it goes up or down. Let's say it goes up 1 time. How many times does it go left or right? It doesn't. It's 0. What happens when you divide something by 0? No, you cannot do it. That's a math no. You dividing 0 divided by something is 0. Multiplying anything by 0 is 0. But if you try to divide by something by 0, you get an undefined amount. And if you have a calculator and you punch in something and you press divide by 0, it's going to tell you error, because it is mathematically impossible. That's why that one is undefined. It'll say error, or it'll say syntax, or it'll say something, but it will not give you a solution. Just by looking at the pictures, another way you can do this, another way you can remember one of them versus the other one. If it is horizontal, like a 0 slope, you can take that line and write 0. See, I can make it a 0. I can make this 0. For a vertical line like this, you can make a line right here and write no slope, because something that is undefined is considered no slope, an undefined slope. Example number 1. We have 3 different examples built into example 1. Find the slope of the line passing through these points. So this first point for A, -2, -3, and 1, 2. It said let x sub 1, y sub 1 be -2, -3. So what you want to do first is label them x, y, and you're just calling this one point 1, and you're calling this one point 2. That's the easiest way to do slope. So x sub 1, y sub 1 is -2, -3. X sub 2, y sub 2 is 1, 2. So from there, your slope formula, y sub 2 minus y sub 1, or the difference of your y's. So y sub 2 is 2 minus y sub 1. Now we have minus a negative. This is where the mistake comes in. 2 minus a -3. What does minus a negative tell you to do? Add them. So that tells you to do plus. Remember, anytime you have minus a negative, it tells you to add them. Over x sub 2 is this one, 1, minus x sub 1, this one, -2. Again, minus a negative means what? Add them. Good. So you have minus a negative for both of those, which means 2 plus 3 over 1 plus 2. 2 plus 3 is 3. I'm sorry, 2 plus 3 is 5. 1 plus 2 is 3. The last thing you have to do with your slope is make sure that you cannot reduce the fraction. Make sure there's no number that goes into both 3 and 5 to make it smaller. And in this case, there isn't, so it's done. 5 over 3. So the slope of the line, since it is a positive value, 5 over 3, you know it rises. If you were to draw that line, it would be an uphill ramp. So for some crazy reason, if you graphed this problem, if you graph this line and you come up with something that looks like this, you know It's wrong no matter what because it is falling, it is going downhill, and you came up with a positive slope. Either you made a mistake when you graphed the line or you made a mistake calculating the slope. Something's wrong. You have to redo something. Check and see. On the back, everybody, we're breaking this one down into 3 different examples. On the back, find this slope here from negative 3, 0 to negative 1, 6. Okay, your slope formula is the change of y over the change of x. That's your slope formula. Take about 30 seconds on that. First thing you want to do is label everything. X, Y, X, Y. Point 1, point 2. Now you just plug them in where they belong. The first one calls for y sub 2. That's this one. 6. Minus, it's minus already. You don't even need the number to know it's minus. Y sub 1 is next. That's this one. 0. Over x sub 2 is next. That's this one. Negative 1. Minus, again, you already know it's minus. X sub 1. That's this one. A negative 3. 6 minus 0 is 6. Negative 1 minus a negative means plus. So negative 1 plus 3, those are opposite signs. Subtract them. 3 minus 1 is 2. And 3 is the higher absolute value. 6 over 2 is not good enough. If that's all you got, you didn't go far enough. The number 2 goes into both of these. It goes into 6 3 times, and it goes into itself 1 time. So your slope is simply 3. Your rise over run would be 3 over 1. The simplified version would be 3. So let's go to B on still example number 1. It says to find the slope from negative 2, 3, negative 2, negative 3 to 4, negative 3. So it says let x sub 1, y sub 1 be negative 2, negative 3, and x sub 2, y sub 2 be 4, negative 3. Again, your slope formula. Y sub 2, that's this one here. That one goes first. Negative 3. Minus y sub 1, that's this one here. Negative 3. Again, minus a negative 3. Over x sub 2, that's this one, 4. Minus x sub 1, negative 2, minus a negative again. So we got minus and negatives again. This is the thing people make mistakes on. When they have minus and negative, they'll put minus and they forget to do the negative. They forget that minus and negative means to add these two. So negative 3 plus 3 is going to be 0 on top. And 4 plus 2 is going to be 6. So we have 0 divided by something, which is 0. You can divide the number 0 by something. You cannot divide something by the number 0. So the slope of this line is 0, which is horizontal. It goes across. Again, on the back, find the slope of this one. Negative 1, negative 3, and 5, negative 3. Take about 30 seconds on this one. First thing you want to do with this is label them. So you gotta remember that the first one's X, the second one's Y. The first one's X, the second one's Y. What if instead of labeling them sub 1 this way, what if we do the other one? What if we say this one sub 1 and this one sub 2? Most of y'all probably didn't do this. I want to show you that it's going to come out to be the same. Okay. So the first one calls for y sub 2. That's this one, negative 3. minus y sub 1 is this one, a negative 3, over x sub 2 is next. That's this one, negative 1, minus x sub 1 is this one, 5. What's negative 3 minus a negative tell you to do? Add. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0. Negative 1 minus 5 is negative 6. 0 divided by anything is what? So your slope, remember, it's okay to divide 0 by something. You get 0. It is not okay to divide something by 0. Notice how similar those two statements are. Your slope for this one is a horizontal line, or 0. And then C says, find the slope between negative 1, negative 4, and negative 1, negative 2. Let x sub 1, y sub 1 be negative 1, negative 4. X sub 2, y sub 2 be negative 1, negative 2. There's your slope formula again, a change of y over the change of x. So y sub 2 is this one. That's why it goes first. Minus y sub 1 is this one. Minus a negative. Remember, we know that means plus a positive. Over x sub 2 is this one. Negative 1. Minus a negative 1. That's x sub 1. Again, plus a positive. Negative 2 plus 4 is positive 2. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Remember what happens when we have something over 0. Can't do that. It is a math no-no. It is undefined, and it is a vertical slope. So you know when you graph this line, if you get any kind of a diagonal line for either this one or the horizontal one, you didn't do something right. You can quickly look at the picture and determine if it's correct. And again, on the back, one more to go along with this one. Find the slope through these 2 points, negative 2, 1, and 1, negative 3. Okay, we're finding a slope here. Remember what your slope is. Slope is the change of y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over the change of x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So y sub 2, negative 3 minus 1, negative 3 minus 1 over the change of x, 1 minus a negative 2. Remember what minus a negative 2 tells you. Negative 3 minus 1, those are the same signs. Add them up and you get the number 4. Keep the common negative 4 over negative 1 minus a negative means plus a positive. 1 plus 2 is 3. There's no number that goes into both of these. So your slope is negative 4 over 3. Negative 4 over 3. Then you have a checkpoint. It says find the slope of the line passing through these points, then classify it by its slope. When it says classify it by its slope, it means call it positive or negative, vertical or horizontal. So the first one is slope. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1, negative 1 minus 2, over x sub 2 minus x sub 1, 4 minus a negative 5. Negative 1 minus 2, same signs, add up 1 and 2 and you get the number 3. Keep the common sign negative. The second, the bottom, 4 minus a negative means plus 5. 4 plus 5 is 9. We can simplify this. The number 3 goes into both. It goes into itself negative 1 times. It goes into 9 3 times. So your slope is negative 1/3. Is this slope rising, falling, horizontal, or vertical? It's negative, so what does that mean? Falling. That's a falling slope. The ramp's going downhill. The little man's going downhill. The second one, 6, 2, 9, 2. Anytime you have the same variable or the same number in place of one of the variables. You can see how they both of the y values have 2 right here. Anytime you have the same number, it is either going to be horizontal or vertical. You can be alert right away. Anytime you have the same number in the same spot, it will be horizontal or vertical. Let's determine which one it is. Y minus y, sub 2 minus 1. 2 minus 2. The top number is going to be 0. Okay. Over x minus x, sub 2 minus sub 1. 9 minus 6, 3. 0 over 3. The slope for this one is 0. Remember, 0 on top is okay. 0 on the bottom is not. So we know that this is not positive or negative since it's 0. Is this one horizontal or vertical? This is a horizontal line. If the slope is 0, it is a horizontal line. Horizontal. Number 3 says, what about negative 7, 0, negative 7, 8? Right away, look how both of the x values say negative 7. This is either going to be horizontal or vertical. 8 minus 0 is first, over negative 7 minus a negative 7. Minus a negative 7. Remember, minus the negative means plus. A positive. 8 minus 0 is 8. Negative 7 plus 7. Same opposite signs. Subtract them. You get 0. Remember, you cannot have 0 on the bottom. So this one's m's value is not 0. You would write m is undefined. Remember, another way to write undefined is m is no slope, or you can write in no slope. And when you classify this, it is either horizontal or vertical. The one that had 0 slope was horizontal, so this one is a vertical line. And then the last one, 2, negative 4, 8, 6. So your change, m is your change of y sub 2 minus y sub 1. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1. 6 minus a negative 4 over your change of x sub 2 minus x sub 1. X sub 2, 8, minus x sub 1, 2. 6 minus a negative means plus 4, which is 10. And 8 minus 2 is 6. This is not your slope because it is not simplified. The number 2 will go into both of these. This one 5 times and this one 3 times. Your slope then is 5 over 3. And again, we're classifying this one. Is it rising, falling, horizontal, or vertical? It is positive, therefore it is rising. This one is rising.